The crisp air of the village square held the scent of wood smoke and a deeper, more volatile aroma. Betrayal. Anya, a 20-year-old woman of the guild, had committed the unforgivable sin, not mere theft, but a calculated breach of the sacred oath of trust she had taken as a fully enfranchised adult member of the community. Twice before she had been forgiven for minor thefts, her debt converted to service. The Reeve, a stern mathbf 50-year-old magistrate, had warned her, mercy spent is justice unbound. This morning her hands, swift and desperate, had taken a loaf of bread and a bolt of fine cloth axe that mocked the labor of her peers and defied the law of the Lord. Now, the entire adult community was gathering. Anya's consequence would be profoundly public. Administered at the post by the steward with the whip of vinyl. An inescapable lesson designed not for cruelty, but for a total psychological and ethical recalibration. This was the price of the broken vow, a ritualistic adult acceptance of a consequence meant to forge a permanent, painful memory marker. As Anya was led toward the post, her shame was a cloak heavier than her patched wool dress, and her heart hammered against the knowledge that today, justice demanded absolute. Witness surrender from $1 mathbf 20. $1-year-old who gambled her honor, asterisk, the mourning and the protected. Autonomous village beneath the Lord's manor was one of controlled activity. The air was thick with the honest scent of commerce, and the rhythmic clang of the blacksmith's hammer served as a testament to diligent adult labor. Anya, a 20-year-old woman whose worn brown wool dress and patched elbows spoke of her struggle, moved through the market. She was fully aware of the oath of trust, the communal vow, required of all adults in the village to maintain order and respect property. Twice before, driven by a sharp, persistent hunger and a restless spirit, she had breached this oath through minor thefts, receiving forgiveness in exchange for public, intensive community labor. The Reeve, a stern magistrate of 50 years with a gray-streaked beard, had delivered the final warning to the adult Anya. One more breach, and there shall be no mercy. Justice will demand a price proportional to the betrayal of your own vow. Anya gambled again, drawn by the steaming golden loaves at the baker's stall and the alluring textures of dyed cloth. Her hand shot out a calculated, willful act of betrayal against her own sworn promise. The baker, a burly mathbf 40, $1-year-old man, turned away for a fatal second. A loaf and a strip of cloth vanished. Thief! The cry came from an older mathbf 60, $1-year-old woman who sold herbs, a respected adult member of the community. The shout immediately ruptured the morning's peace. The baker spun around, his face twisting not with mere rage, but with profound disappointment. He lunged and caught Anya's wrist. The stolen loaf tumbled into the mud dot. The crowd swelled instantly. These were not random observers. They were peers, adults who had worked alongside Anya, shared meals, and critically shared the same oath of trust. Their murmurs were heavy with condemnation. Again, scoffed $1 mathbf 35, $1-year-old woman. How many times must her adult vows be mocked? The Reeve was summoned. He strode across the square, his staff of office held firmly. When the 20-year-old Anya met his eyes, she saw not fury, but cold, absolute, and anticipated judgment. Arrest! The Reeve commanded, his voice carrying over the throng. This maid, a fully initiated adult of our community, has once more willfully broken the peace. Twice she was forgiven. Now she has chosen thrice condemned status. She dishonors her neighbors and mocks the law to which she willingly agreed. I was hungry, Anya whispered, the weak excuse swallowed by the collective disapproval. We all work for bread, the baker spat. She takes without labor, without shame. She breaches her vow to us all. The Reeve grasped Anya's arm. You know the custom? The Lord grants us autonomy, but demands absolute accountability for repeated betrayal of trust. You shall answer before your fellows. Mercy has been completely spent. Today, justice shall be irrevocably seen. He bound her wrists with thick rope. Anya begged, her voice raw, Please, Mercy. I will not do it again. But the Reeve, the $mathbf 50-year-old magistrate, was resolute. The terms of her oath, the contract of her adult life, had been breached one time too many. She was led through the square. The entire adult community, the farmers, the wives, the apprentices trailing behind, up the worn stone steps and into the manor's outer courtyard. Script expansion, the setting of the consequence, the adult consensus of the community, and the detailed philosophical justification. Focusing on the 8,000-word requirement, the courtyard was wide, its cobblestones slick. At its center stood the whipping post, a heavy weathered wood fixture, stained dark by time and the infrequent, formal consequences administered under the Lord's law. The adult community gathered swiftly. This was a ritual of accountability, not entertainment. The crowd's expressions were grim, a heavy mask of communal judgment, not mere curiosity. The Lord himself was absent, but his steward, a tall man of 42 years in a forest green surcoat, stood overseeing the process. He carried the authority of the law, the ultimate executor of the adult contractual consequence. Anya's face burned with profound shame as she glanced at her neighbors. She saw the adult faces of the women she had shared labor with, the men who had offered her warnings. Now they were unified in their cold, collective disdain. She felt smaller, more insignificant than she ever had as an adult. The Reeve lifted his staff. This adult woman, Anya, is found guilty of willful, repeated theft, and, more critically, the betrayal of her oath of trust, twice forgiven, thrice condemned. By order of the law, she shall receive the prescribed consequence here before her peers, that all may learn the absolute price of dishonor and the sanctity of an adult's word. A ripple of solemn, heavy murmurs passed through the assembly. The adult citizens accepted the judgment. Anya's legs shook beneath her patched dress. She pressed her forehead to the rough wood of the post, whispering a prayer of final, desperate plea for strength that the wood did not absorb. The pronouncement was followed by the necessary preparation. Two strong, adult guards stepped forward. Anya's wool dress was carefully, deliberately tugged down at the back, exposing her shoulders to the chill air, an act of ritualized, necessary exposure to ensure the lesson was received directly and without impediment. The shame of this exposure, far more than the physical act, was designed to compound the psychological impact on the 20-year-old, the steward. The 42-year-old executor of justice uncoiled the instrument of consequence, the whip, a single thick strip of heavy leather, carefully maintained, its use reserved exclusively for this final level of adult ethical failure. He did not speak, his silence magnifying the weight of the moment. Asterisk, the first lash cracked through the courtyard. It was sharp, loud, and final. Anya gasped, her body arching violently against the post, the pain blooming hot and immediate across her back. The initial shock was not just physical, it was the violent, physical confrontation with the consequence she had deliberately courted. A second strike followed, and a third. She cried out, the sound raw and uncontrolled, tearing through the quiet dignity of the adult assembly. Children shrank back, but the adults held their ground, their faces grim. Witnessing the necessary enforcement of the law they all lived under, the whip fell again, each strike biting with meticulous, focused intensity, each cry from Anya ringing with the forced confession of her failure. Her tears streaked her cheeks, her hands clenched until her nails cut into her palms. She tried desperately to stifle her sobs, but the whip tore them free, forcing her public and complete surrender by the fifth stroke. The $mathbf, $20-year-old Anya's voice had faltered into raw, hoarse whimpers. Her strength was draining, the effort of maintaining consciousness under the pain a monumental task. By the 10th, she sagged against the post, her earlier defiance utterly annihilated, yet the steward's arm remained steady, his duty absolute. The consequence had been set, the number decreed by the weight of her betrayal, and it was administered with an unwavering clinical precision when at last the final strike was delivered. The whip hung slack, the sound of the leather snapping silenced. Anya's exposed shoulders were striped a harsh red, her breath ragged, her entire being focused on the immediate, profound cessation of pain. The silence in the courtyard was heavy, broken only by her shaking sobs. The rope was swiftly cut. Anya crumpled instantly to her knees, clutching her raw shoulders, the overwhelming wave of shame washing over her with greater force than the pain. The crowd began to disperse, slowly, solemnly, murmuring not of cruelty, but of justice irrevocably served and law upheld. Some pitied the young adult woman. Others simply shook their heads at her repeated failure to value her own word. The Reeve's voice, firm and clear, carried one last profound warning across the courtyard. Take heed, all of you. Law spares not the repeated offender. The price for this adult betrayal is paid, but the cost of the next breach will be banishment from our community. Find your humility now, or lose your place forever. Anya looked up through blurred, tear-filled vision at the departing adult faces. No one came to help her. No one offered comfort. This was the final, agonizing point of the lesson. The consequence of a broken vow is absolute, solitary isolation. She was alone in her pain, branded by the irreversible choice she had made, with trembling legs. The mathbf $20-year-old pulled her wool dress back over her shoulders, covering the stinging skin, covering the shame, and staggered away, disappearing down the narrow lane toward her cottage. That night, she lay in her bed. Every movement was a burning reminder, but worse than the pain was the searing, indelible memory of her neighbor's eyes, the knowledge that her name would now be forever linked with disgrace and betrayal. She had paid the price of the broken vow in full in her heart. The question that had lingered before was now replaced by absolute conviction. The hunger was still there, but the terror of the consequence, the physical sting, and the utter abandonment had forged a permanent, unyielding boundary. She would not gamble again. The law had been written on her back, and the lesson would last for the rest of her adult life. The communal trust, once broken, would take a lifetime of diligent, honest labor to rebuild. The price was worth the memory,